Hello, I'm Allie Cherneman, and today I'm going to be talking about influenza. Influenza is commonly known as the flu. But what is the flu, you ask? Well, the flu is a respiratory illness caused by the influenza virus. How does one catch the flu, you might ask? Well, the virus enters your respiratory tract as you breathe it in. Once it's in the respiratory tract, then it starts to replicate itself. This replication causes the respiratory tract to become inflamed and swollen. Once it's in the respiratory tract, it enters the bloodstream and the first symptoms begin to show. Well, today I will specifically be addressing the H1N1 influenza virus, commonly known as the swine flu. It is called the swine flu because scientists found that the genes within this virus were very similar to those viruses that are commonly seen in pigs. The 2009 pandemic of the H1N1 influenza virus in the United States was found to be a mix between swine and avian or bird flu viruses. Now here's a short video that will further explain the origins of this influenza.
It turns out that this 2009 H1N1 began circulating in pigs in 1918. At the same time, the 1918 influenza virus outbreak was occurring in humans. But because these two viruses were in different hosts, they evolved differently. So they both have a common ancestor going back to 1918. But because the swine H1N1 was in pigs, it evolved differently from human H1N1. And now that swine H1N1 is basically a new virus to humans, and the pre-existing immunity we have to seasonal H1N1 doesn't really protect us significantly from it. Whales and seals both carry particular strains of influenza. Horses carry influenza virus strains, and recently dogs have become a significant source of influenza virus infection. An influenza virus particle is roughly round in shape. It has a couple of protrusions coming off of it in two different shapes, one that's more of a spike and one more of a propeller shape. The H spike is used to enter a cell, and the other, the N spike that we always refer to, is used to actually get away from a cell. Anywhere from 9 to 12 hours later, the surface of that cell starts to form little bubbles, and those bubbles are new virus particles coming off. For about 3 to 4 hours, that cell will be able to make infectious virus particles, and it can make anywhere from 10,000 to nearly 1 million virus particles depending on the cell type. So if you're immune to infection, with influenza that means that you have antibodies that will bind to the virus particle and keep that virus particle from interacting with the cell.
Okay, now that you know where this influenza virus originates from, I will now explain what exactly it does. The specific H1N1 influenza virus has an RNA genome that contains 5 RNA strands derived from various swine flu strains. This virus changes constantly through antigenic shifts so that it can be spread and not be affected. This is because the antibodies don't know how to recognize this new virus. This antigenic change was one of the main causes of the 2009 swine flu epidemic in the United States. The swine flu specifically attacks the respiratory tract, as I mentioned before. Doing so, it causes a lack of oxygenation and even a buildup of fluid in the lungs, which can occur in very severe cases. H1N1 can be transmitted by a cough or a sneeze, which releases tiny droplets that contain the virus into the air, although studies are still being conducted on how the virus is first caught. Here's another short video on how the H1N1 influenza virus is spread and also how it attacks within the body.
The carrier of a devastating flu virus could be as innocent as a child. She could be returning home with her family from a vacation. On the flight, every cough she makes, every touch she makes, could transmit the virus she now carries. Early symptoms of a flu are like the common cold. It could be hours or days before more serious symptoms become apparent. No one, not her parents or other passengers, would suspect this little girl could be ground zero for a worldwide pandemic. Flu viruses kill people every year, but in the last century, 3 flu pandemics killed millions. Perhaps the most serious recorded flu outbreak began in 1918. Close quarters of World War I soldiers provided opportunity for human-to-human transmission. And their migration to the war zones meant mixing with civilians around the world. Victims bled internally, and the lungs filled with fluid, sometimes drowning the patients. Over 50 million people died from this influenza, at least 30 million more than were killed in the war. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control has released images of the swine flu virus that is believed to have originated in March 2009 in Mexico. Though swine influenza does not normally infect people, there have been sporadic previous human infections. But this strain is new. How does a flu virus attack? A protein spike on the surface of a flu virus is the key to breaking into a human cell. The virus's genetic material enters the cell's nucleus and can make it clone hundreds of thousands of new viruses. Then the virus's protein enables the release of new viruses that attack and take over more cells. The human immune reaction sends out cells and chemicals called cytokines to attack the virus in the lungs, but they cause severe inflammation. The virus itself may not kill its host, but inflammation can cause blood and other fluids to build up in the lungs, and the patient actually drowns. Backyard farms like this could be the link that allows swine or avian flu to jump from animals to humans. When influenza viruses from different species infect pigs, the viruses can reassort or swap genes. Flu viruses are made up of RNA, forever changing genetic material. By mutating, the RNA could make the virus less dangerous, but it could also make it more deadly under the right conditions. New strains can emerge that are a mix of swine, human, and avian influenza viruses. And once human-to-human transmission is established, with our jet-setting lifestyles of today, it could be only a matter of days before the virus can be taken around the world, creating a pandemic.
Alright, now that you know what the H1N1 is and how it attacks within the body, you need to know some of the symptoms that come along with this virus. These symptoms may be similar to those of the common cold early on, but as the virus continues to infect the body, the symptoms worsen. These symptoms include coughing, fever, sore throat, stuffy or runny nose, body aches, headache, chills, fatigue, nausea, and vomiting. How do you treat the swine flu, you ask? Well, the best form of treatment for swine flu is prevention by vaccination. Vaccinations that first came available after the outbreak in 2009 include a nasal spray vaccination that came about first, and soon thereafter an injectable vaccination became available. Other antiviral agents that were developed to help prevent or reduce the effects of the swine flu were zanamivir, also known as Relenza, and oseltamivir, also known as Tamiflu. How can I protect myself from the swine flu virus, you ask? Well, some serious measures can be taken to limit the spread of the influenza virus in the case of a pandemic, including closing schools and canceling gatherings in early stages. But there are also many simple personal hygiene measures that can be taken into consideration in order to personally help avoid and stop the spread of the virus. These would include staying away from people who are coughing or sneezing, washing your hands frequently, and if you have any of the flu symptoms, you should stay home in order to help stop the spread of the virus. Here's a fun video that will help you further understand how to protect yourself from the H1N1 influenza virus.
H1N1 swine flu infection. For intervention, I bring prevention. Dr. Clark, here I come to make your head numb. Health hot, lesson 1 to stop the bedlam. If you think you infected, seek attention. If you haven't, stay at home so you don't spread none. Use tissues when you sneeze, cause you could spread some. Cause coughed up germs is where it spreads from. I'm recommending washing hands for protection front and back real thorough while you count 20 seconds. Hand sanitizer, I advise you get it. Why? It makes germs die when you rub and let it dry. Don't touch your eyes, your mouth, your nose, your face. That's how you get infected, so you better play it safe. Long-term outcome, we'll see the end come. Never sick again from the H1N1.
Well, I hope that you found this video interesting and helpful to you. And now that you know the origin of the H1N1 influenza virus and how it works within the body, take this information into consideration next time you feel a common cold coming on. It might not be what you think. It might be more serious. It might even be the swine flu.